the show, mainly exploring the blurred positions of producer and consumer, professional and amateur, author and user, but in a wider context beyond the realm of art, because it's something that I think the prosumer term is something that very much characterizes our contemporary culture. We've looked in previous lectures at the potential of copy in image speculation in the history of art and in contemporary art, but also, for example, the limitations and the potential of social media networks. Today, professional investor and amateur skier Tõnu Pekk will talk about prosumerization in hobby sports. And for our international guests, who I'm very delighted to welcome, it will also hopefully be a little sideways glimpse into something that is very much ingrained in the Estonian culture, so you will get a little bit of that and perhaps the recent history of developments in Estonia as well. Tõnu has been collaborating with communication expert Daniel Vaarik for a while now on different lectures. They are just about to start a lecture series entitled Mythologies of Finance in the local Tallinn Technological University, is that the Technical University. And Daniel is also present here today, and he will hopefully enliven the atmosphere with questions and comments. And I very much hope that some of you will do the same towards the end of the lecture. So enjoy it. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Krista. Okay. Good evening, everybody. So I'll start with just an example, sort of reminder, maybe blueberry soup is not.
Reach for a cup today at your favorite mountain resort. Yes, it's Blue Bear. Imported just for you. It's delicious, piping hot Blue Bear. Ask for a cup at your mountaintop today. That's right, friend. Delicious, hot, imported blueberry Blue Bear from Sweden.
He's also the brand Ekström, and the same company Ekström in 1958 decided that it will give away for free to participants of local Vaasa Outlet ski marathon loads of this powder-made drink in sort of warm during the ski marathon. The Vaasa Outlet at the time probably had about 1,000 participants, mostly workers from nearby sort of Dalarna area, Volvo and other factories. And they enjoyed it so much that blueberry soup became a regular fixture of Vaasa Outlet Marathon. So much so that at some point the participants were called blåbär in Swedish. More recently, this nickname has acquired a different meaning, and today it denotes these slow skiers in Vaasa Outlet ski marathon, or any of the mass sports events who are slow enough that they have time to grab this sweet drink, warm drink. There's no blueberry soup for the men in Viper costumes in Briko. And this is the first year of blueberry soup being served in Vaasa Outlet. Tartu Marathon at the time didn't exist yet. It came into being in 1960. Probably reached the height in 1980s. At the time, blueberry soup was not part of Tartu Marathon. It just didn't exist here in that sort of industrial form as in Soviet Union. But it was rather Rakvere Frankfurter, which was kind of enjoyed cold as a kind of snack or favorite. Since Estonia became what's the word again? The blueberry soup is here at Tartu Marathon as well. So, going into Tartu Marathon, this is like, here is my dad. And my first memory of marathon is from 1985. Although I was a kid yet, I wasn't able to participate in this long race, 63 kilometers. I accompanied my dad and his colleagues in a sort of bus trip to take part of the marathon. And as it often happened at the time, so these days the bus broke down, so eventually we made it to start literally 2 minutes before the starting gun fired. The only guy actually to make it to start right on time was my dad. So he didn't carry his costume at the time, that's because he hadn't participated in so many marathons, so he didn't have the numbers. But he had already put on the racing clothes and boxed the skis in the bus, and so he rushed to start, and off they went. The rest of the people took the time, so they boxed the skis, watched the 10,000 or so participants. So here we go into the forest. So there were quite many of them. And then 15 to 20 minutes later, they followed the other people into the forest. So the colleagues had started the day at 4 a.m. in the morning, and this mere accident with the bus wasn't about to ruin the day. So the bus eventually then went to finish, picked everybody up, whenever they came in. Then the whole bus took to communal sauna and then had a jolly ride home. I myself did the first marathon in 1995, and as compared to the pictures you've seen, it was a very different affair. So what had happened in between, so the marathon reached its peak of over 10,000 participants in 1987. Thereafter, there were 3 years with no snow. Then there was also quite a significant social changes taking place. Estonia was becoming independent. Suddenly everything was, there were, the times were economically not very good. Gasoline, often some of the major roads were not clean, so therefore there was no gasoline for grooming the ski tracks. There were no switch just gone off. Sorry. There were no state enterprises anymore who would give for free the buses to ferry people to this folk festival. And there were less than 1,000 participants at the time. But it slowly has picked up again. And if we look at today, what it has become, so quite a lot of things have changed since the time. So first of all, technology. So these are the tractors now grooming the ski tracks. Believe me, the tracks are like railways, so they are in perfect shape after 10,000 people have tread on these roads. So the skis are better. They go faster. It's actually easier to go through the marathon. One might imagine that the numbers, participant numbers would grow, and they do grow. Strange enough, actually, in some years, but the organizers have now decided even to cap the maximum number of participants in the race, and there's also a severe penalty of when you register late, so nobody can register on the race day anymore, on the marathon day. The marathon day is, I'm now talking about my own experience, this is a serious affair. So usually it's, I ride the day before, there's a big hall to collect the marathon number of B. you stay overnight in Otepää, which is the starting place. I also, I just want to show that I do have actually, I could wax my skis myself, but just to make sure that they are really in a really good shape, I have them prepared professionally. So these are the guys doing it, and there are like several teams of these servicemen working there for the amateur sportsmen like me. We pay 30 to 60 euros per pair of skis, and they work through all the night because it's of course important that you know exactly the weather conditions to get the perfect mix. Actually, for some of you who might not be aware of what the waxing the skis means, or haven't come across, it used to be a complex science. There was always some old guy who knew exactly what wax went for what weather. These days you can make it very easy. You can just pull out the roll and put it, just glue it underneath the ski, and it holds. However, the marathon example shows that more and more people actually leave it to servicemen. There are less and less people who do it themselves. I spoke to Vega Ulvang, who's a 3-time Olympic winner from the 90s and a great ski enthusiast. He said that, coming from far away from some northern part of Norway, he was the last guy in the Norwegian professional ski team in the 80s who would wax his own skis. So the skiing, as the nation became more, either he's wealthy or sort of well off. So the newer guys always had somebody else, either a coach or parents or professional servicemen to do it. So today there are very, very few people wax their own skis. So proceeding to ski stadium. This is the marathon day. It's a big affair. Perhaps 5,000 or 6,000 people getting out at the same time, and just some 63 kilometers. It looks pretty fast. There are also, given that there are many people on track at the same time with different skills, things happen. We get to do the race. I work hard. It's really, I'm very tired after at the end. Actually, I wanted to show them. The next day, I get there's an Excel sheet which does sort of analytics, which I can compare how well I did against my peers. Let's see, how was it in 93? Edition here. Okay. Yeah, okay, just, you can see like in some, perhaps lost to the first guys in the second stage from the point so up here are the feeding stations, so therefore like markers on the road, so that after every 10 kilometers or so. So I can do some analysis as well of my results, and it's very important. So I compare it against my friends and peers and just go through the list of looking who did how. And there are always many reasons. You can actually see often, even if I'm not, it's not about, I'm not gonna, as you saw, it's not about the first 100 or the first 10. I'm perhaps in the first 1,000, but there's always somewhere, it's not only my performance, there's also the performance of the skis and the servicemen. I can blame them if I don't do very well. So it looks like a professional affair. Just looking on some other country, just as a comparison, I thought, maybe some Tartu Marathon looking very professional. So here's, it's not only Estonia who ski, in northern Italy, for example, skiing is popular as well. This is Marcialonga Marathon, also going along beautiful alpine hills. Where the people, it was known to sort of be like a very leisurely, about 70 kilometers race, where people would stop, drink cafe at the village shop, and perhaps even schnapps sometimes. In 2003, the marathon organizers decided that they actually switch over from the what was then freestyle event or skating style event to classic style. So for those again not familiar with the different types of skiing, the classic style is like Roald Amundsen would go to North Pole. And skating, as the name says, or freestyle, it does remind skating. These days, again, classic style maybe more popular in Scandinavia. It somehow switched that, the purists who maybe like more professional guys do classic style more, whereas those who would just want to take a leisurely stroll, they will go freestyle or skating. Even though actually hiking on skis, that happens mostly in classic style, or something like that. The ski marathons, major marathons, have mostly turned to classic style. Perhaps it could be that it's because skating requires more space, so you need wider tracks. So this is Marcialonga before it turned into so it just it slows down a little bit the proceedings. So 2003, Marcialonga switched to classic, and there arrived 1,500 Norwegian skiers as well who wanted to take part, who are massive classic style races. So nowadays the organizers have put up, there's no more going through the villages. There are fences off because skiers go very fast. Collisions can happen. Norwegians, they make up perhaps more than half of the first 1,000 finishes. So they are, the marathon now sells out effectively in the first 10 minutes whenever they open the registration. And most of the places go to Norway. So some people call it Scandinavian ski race in Italy. And for those who like the old times, there's a separate ride now. It's 11 kilometers that way. So it's just irony here, isn't it, that by going back to the more traditional skiing style, Marcialonga suddenly became massively competitive and in perhaps modern. So, while thinking about why this might have happened, that these mass participation events, also in this, in a sport which is like which is not very widely done, why this might have happened. I come across I spoke to different people. Again, for example, I had a long interview with Ega Ulvang. And I could name three reasons which came to my mind. Some people think that's, it's all noble sport. What has happened there, the cross-country skiing has gone massively competitive. Even much more so than here, and across the board. So that not only that in the Olympic Games there's only Norwegians winning the medals, but also down to, as we saw in Marcialonga, there's always the Norwegians who are winning everything in cross-country skiing. And in Norway, apparently, this is a ranking by one of the major dailies. After Norwegians have their own ski marathon as well, it's called Birkebeiner. After the marathon, there's always a ranking of business leaders and celebrities who did better. And apparently, some headhunters are recommending people who apply for management positions to indicate also their results on Birkebeiner and will indicate that they'll be good. Maybe second, skiing as well has been globalizing. There's some limits of how much you can globalize the presence of snow. But today there's a word lot that the series is effectively a marketing organization between the various ski marathons, and so you can actually buy a World Open pass and travel from country to country, carrying with you your national habits, or perhaps also this spirit of competitiveness. And then also, of course, these mass sports events, even the cross-country skiing ones are big, an important medium for consumer products. An example would be probably one of the biggest running marathons in London. One from Flora London Marathon to Virgin London Marathon, and more recently it's even better position to Virgin Money London Marathon. Tartu Marathon as well is SEB Bank's Tartu Marathon. How important is it? Those who are probably more specific interested in for endurance sports maybe noticed that recently a Chinese group, Wanda, paid $600 million for the company which owns Ironman triathlon rights to organize Ironman triathlon events. So it is an important event. And of course, besides these mass consumer brands, they are the skiing equipment companies as well. They are visible on these events. They are present. Not only from not only handing out equipment to professionals, but also wooing these amateur skiers into not using their gear. So everybody, has noticed when just in the public here, you see when Andrus Veerpalu is one of our skiing heroes races, that it would have logos of various brands and including skiing equipment on it. But apparently these sports companies, they are also sponsoring already key amateurs. So it's not only the professional Olympic races who get sponsored, but also amateur races. So they, in exchange for example, free equipment, they will then commit to participate in a number of races. I know even in this audience there are some people who are participating in various endurance races under kind of a certain brand, sports brand, which kind of then the sports brand sponsors them for taking part. So, just getting into the equipment, so that there has to be some economic logic as well in this. Why would somebody? Just I'll get there in a second. Why would somebody? Just add here. Prosumer equipment, for those again who perhaps are not familiar with the term, maybe more often this is often used in photography, where it denotes certain kind of equipment which is in their qualities and perhaps more importantly in pricing somewhere between professional and completely amateur equipment in cameras, for example. In skiing, maybe even, it's hard to say professional equipment, the professionals who actually ski for money, their equipment is not in shops because they never buy it from shops. They always get it for free. They go and select it from the factory. So one might say that the sort of prosumer equipment among the ski equipment is the most expensive one in the shop. Besides equipment, there's also this variety of nutrition, which is also a massive industry. The estimates are 10 billion euros of worldwide revenue last year. This is a colleague of mine before a cycling race. So he had these girls and things lined up on his shirt. That's what he took with him. Most of it is, probably sugar and some proteins, but there's also a stronger variety. So much so that since 2013, Tartu Marathon, some amateur participants randomly selected are also subject to doping tests, because apparently these middle-aged businessmen are also consuming professional products. It's kind of hard to assess on this change, like why does, for example, Tartu Marathon get more competitive, and or maybe it's just me. I'm gonna let a little bit aside the cultural factors, because they are very complex to assess, and so the economic ones are maybe easier. So obviously, by the way, this is the first one. There is the Briko suit, ski suit. It's a lycra suit which you put on and pick up. Then you go ski. And next to it is a cheaper lycra suit. And obviously the price difference can be huge. I mean, the Briko there costs 185 euros, and this other thing might be maybe 15 euros. When we get more specific, skis can be somewhere above pair is probably something in the 500s, and the one below is maybe 60 or 70 euros. The boots as well, they're about also somewhere around 350, and the one below somewhere 50 euros. Certainly, I mean, I can attest that these more expensive ones are probably they're faster. I mean, quite certain they are a little bit faster. And the boot is also lighter, more stiff. I don't know how much difference it makes in my result, and or why it matters. I mean, the lycra suit as well. I mean, if it's really good one, it does compress your muscles, and apparently enhances the blood circulation, so actually you can last longer in racing. But it might be also the appearance that when you if you did the tour of this exhibition here upstairs, there's a video, a TED talk by Amy Cuddy, who talks about how taking certain poses kind of improves your kind of sense of self-worth. What she calls not fake it till you make it, but fake it till you become it. So when you put on the suit and become really racier, and you feel stronger. But it could also be, the other way around, that this Briko suit, not only makes you going faster, but it also makes the Briko suit look better. So you agree that something, especially collapses as well, so that a fast-going ski suit looks much better than a slow-going ski suit. So it might be that we are encouraged to improve the worth of this sports equipment. So maybe we are working for Briko. Well, at least I am, and I participate in Tartu Marathon. Some figures which might make you think the same way. An average participant there's a statistics from this Norwegian race for the Birkebeiner Rennet trains 7 hours every week. It's an average. And for those who want to get into first 500, it's more closer to 20 hours. It's 20 hours a week, so that's quite serious. For example, when I want to do some medical testing before I go to Tartu Marathon, just measure how my endurance and how my fitness levels are, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get this time slot because these things are really massively booked up by similar amateurs as me, who are, and again, this sort of testing includes measuring the oxygen intake, so effectively calculating some magic VO2 max, so how much body can consume oxygen per kilogram in every minute or so. So the more, the better. And some of this VO2 max is genetically kind of set, but a lot of that can be improved by training. Also, the process, the competition or the marathon itself, it's, while the pictures, you saw it here, it is a kind of great feeling of everybody going together. I have to say that my marathon looks maybe more like this, especially when I start from the back, then I get through. It's a bit of a struggle, so what looks like a beautiful collective action is Guy Debord and is in his Society of the Spectacle talks about this being together in isolation. So that we are everybody on our own. So I'm getting to the official end of it. I have to say it's a serious job, and some, the question then arises, obviously, that why would somebody do it? I mean, is it kind of, do I have to compete with everybody, or is it somehow connected with this purchase of all this prosumer equipment that when I bought this equipment, that I make a subconscious contract with the producer, the brand, that I need to live up to this to the high level of this equipment. I don't have an answer to this, but it's a possibility. But in any case, there's actually in the prosumer term as such, when it was started by Alvin Tocher in the 1980s, describing those people who are simultaneously consumers and producers. Some people found that maybe it is a way of, it's actually, this is the only work we do without being alienated, alienated, so that we actually we want to work, and we do work for free, and just enjoy the whole process, or at least are not cynical about it. So maybe that is the future work. And I would like to end this official part with the quote, a three-phrase quote from J.F. Kennedy, where what you might do is that the next time you buy the equipment, so you don't ask what this equipment can do for you, but you rather ask what you can do for the equipment. Thank you.
First of all, it really spoke to my mind because in the 90s I was exactly this guy who had a bike. It was a very regular bike. I had this kind of sandals, and I jumped on a bike, and then I was biking in the forest or something. And I was constantly harassed by my friends that I'm doing things wrong. Actually, some of them said that it's wrong. So I started buying up this kind of gear, like this, looking in the end like some kind of alien movie, this kind of helmets and all kind of strict light stuff and things like that. And it was not possible to enjoy the ride without these kind of things because everyone else was gearing up. And also I remember there was an article by a famous banker in the summer in the 90s, which quite sincerely brought an example of someone who ran faster than this said banker, and he didn't have any gear. He just had this kind of old school things. And then this banker very sincerely made this conclusion that it is still possible. And there are people who do these things, and we should think of these people. They might not have the means, but they are very, very good. And this was like a revelation that made him write an article. And this brings me actually to this thing that you were talking about 3 reasons, like the Norwegians and globalizations and brands. But in an Estonian context, we also have this extremely competitive 90s, which was that you have Soviet society, and suddenly it's transformed very rapid speed into some really capitalist society. So my first question is, do you think that we actually had something extra, that in Estonia we had this kind of motivation to really gear up because of this is what capitalism is supposed to be, like we compete on every level, and we use every marginal gain that we can get to do that.
Yeah, and maybe it is what capitalism is supposed to be.
What we thought it is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
right. But I'm not quite sure if it is what humans supposed to be. Because I mean, I agree that we have different traits. That you know, one of them is probably competitiveness, but also there's this you know, cooperative trait as well, and depends which button you push more.
we had this culture, we had this embracing everything that is about competitiveness, because it didn't exist at all before, and suddenly it was there. It was this new thing, everyone should compete.
Yeah.
It was like in the 90s, not now, but in the 90s.
There's one statistic, for example, what I found is that not all groups have joyfully accepted this idea that we need now what used to be like a leisurely kind of mass participation sort of expedition should be a competitive race now, and then and this group is, for example, female skiers. So when you know, in the 80s, the average proportion of females among the finishers was somewhere around 18-20%. It's closer to 10% now. Maybe they haven't quite embraced it.
Yeah, this is what we should learn now. But my other question is that also in Estonia, foreign listeners might not know so well, we have some really big opinion leaders on who base a lot of their observations on marathons. There is this kind of really famous in Estonia, really famous journalist who has this blog where he has this how he trains like 40 hours a week and how sweat and blood and all this kind of things, so very sexy and whatever. And then there is also this politician who recently has started to post on Facebook page how he has gone through this Ironman thing, and how it all pays off when you actually nearly kill yourself, take painkillers and go through it. And then that has actually made me think that maybe, just listening to you, maybe what actually happened in the 90s was that these kind of competitions introduced some kind of a metaphor to society and actually made the society think about competing much more than it was inclined to do. And at the moment we can see there are guys who think that marathon is an ultimate metaphor of politics or business or things like that. And you also worked in Hansabank, which was mostly like sportsmen, like everyone was like professional sportsmen. And they were also like a lot about the competition and stuff. Could it be like vice versa? That actually with the sports that was climbing towards really competitive, I don't know, like situation was introduced in this way and it actually changed our politics and business in a way.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one example is the example of Hansabank. I guess how much detail we should go in here, but as soon as the organization grew bigger, it actually subsided so that this all went away. So what used to be competitive summer days it became regular drinking events again. So different torrents in the society which took over this competitiveness streak. I still, you know, it's hard to say what comes first, and I don't think there's no first here. So that these things they self-reinforce each other. So that I mean, maybe something, something. But you know, the marathon is a complex thing as well. There's an event where 10,000 people take part. There are many factors which make people to take part on this event and what they want to achieve. For example, actually from the 50s, the joke went that about Vasaloppet again, the Swedish ski marathon, that there are two drinks which are essential to the Vasaloppet. Which one is aquavit, which being drunk during the New Year's Eve made people give silly wagers, like with their bodies. And one of the regular ones on the Larna area was that I'm going to go and do this Vasaloppet test. So and then 2 months later they were there and had to actually race it there. There are many factors why people go and do the marathon. But the question is like what gets which factor gets dominant and how does it get dominant is by lots of small things, but if these small things all tend to support only one aspect of a marathon instead of many other aspects, I don't think that the marathon somehow should do a program now like how to people make the wagers, drunken wagers like in the New Year's Eve, but there are many factors which and one of them being picked up.
But I still think that there must be some footprint of 10,000 people doing this every year. And if I take marathon as a metaphor, I've never actually gone through any marathon, but I think that if you take that marathon as something of a metaphor, it means that at some point it gets really ugly, and at some point you're really tired, but you still have to go through it, because you need to go through it. And what happens when you take it as a metaphor of life, politics or business, it means that at some point if things get ugly, you actually, okay, this is natural, life is a marathon, I go through it. And I think that for certain politicians it seems to be actually who are also doing marathon, it seems to be a model. And that's what I'm wondering, if that kind of a mass event can actually have, can it leak into real life? For example, you do marathons and you do business. Do you feel sometimes that you are like using your marathon experience in order to win?
But again, here, that's what I wanted to explain. That there are different experiences.
Yeah.
One is the marathon denotes for competition or overcoming yourself. So most often, what it's stood for is that I'm able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That is, what it. But for most people, why they make wagers? They make wagers of okay, I'm gonna go and do it. They don't. It's not sports betting of that England will win some other team. So who goes faster? It's still about just are you able to overcome yourself, cross this the long distance between the coach and the front door of the house and go out and train for it. And for me that would be a marathon metaphor, and what I would also use in business. The fact that I'm going faster than somebody else, is that relevant? Or how can it be relevant? I can't even remember. Maybe because I've always been a competitive racer.
Okay, but still you're doing this lecture and you're very educated one and so on. But okay, my last question before giving the word to the audience it's not actually a question, it's a comment. That when we take all these things to other areas of life, for example, if you have a car, then I think that the car brand communicates a lot on a highway in Estonia. It is like you have bought this kind of promise that I can speed with this Porsche or Mercedes, and then you have a Honda, you're not really allowed to do it because you haven't paid for this. And kind of living out this brand on the highway is pretty much happening, I think. It's like, if you look what people do, you don't even know what was first. Was it like doing this kind of, going with this style, or buying this car? But somehow it kind of happens. There is this kind of huge hierarchy of things happening. And also when we take photography, then I guess many people remember that like 10 years ago we went to a wedding, And there were no regular people. Everyone was a photographer with this thing and looking very disappointed because everyone else was also with this thing. So we can see that actually, in a way, is taking this what happens in a marathon. In many other fields of life, you can see this kind of prosumerialization things, which all this series of events here has been about. And then probably for you also, it's like you have this, you have analyzed through this marathon thing, you see it happening in other places. Maybe you have another example to bring.
I'll say another example, but certainly, I mean, I guess, biggest area where it's happening is probably where 2.0. But of course, I mean, Facebook was also made by its users. It's not Mark Zuckerberg didn't fill all the fields which made it interesting. So there were, there are 1 billion people working every day.
There's no
but there are many people study and spend hours every day to fill it up. So therefore, yes, I mean, there are in many fields the consumers are making the brands, working hard for these brands, and for free.
In Estonia, when we had this internet comments, then it didn't take off in the beginning in the newspapers, so it was actually built by people who work on newspapers. But then they took off, and now it's also prosumer thing. So okay, I'm out of questions. Thank you for this excellent lecture, and I guess there would be other people who would like to have some questions.
I have one comment. I just wanted to say that there is a very beautiful side of Tartu Marathon also, but you can see when you are starting in the back, maybe in the wrong corridor, because if you look at this name of your lecture, as I understand, men in Briko don't eat blueberry soup because they don't have time. But if you start looking into these people who have time to eat this blueberry soup, there is a rich society of interesting people, and they don't happen to wear Briko. This is true.
Yeah.
But I had a situation that I was also a bit late to the start, and I started in the very back, and I saw a lot of interesting people there, because there are the ladies, 60 years old, 70 years old, also young people with costumes, and you can see that they do it for different reasons. And this society of people who do that for tradition is quite large. But it is interesting that if you want to start in the back, you have to break the rules a bit, because if you race the Tartu Marathon every year, you get this number that you are fixed to start with the people that are the same fast as you are.
Yeah.
So you have this competition you have to engage. But if you break the rule, you can get to see another world that is very beautiful.
No, it's a very valid comment. I mean, I totally agree that there are always people, and there are these blah and the blueberries and Vaasa, so there are always people who actually, and I still hope there are still a majority of people. I hope there's more than half of the field. Maybe not. But what is happening is, what I'm noticing is that this, what used to be the first 100, this line between the blueberries and the men in Briko is moving slowly, and it's certainly, today it's no longer like the first 1,000 even. It's more like the first 2,000, maybe 3,000. So it's just, when you happen to be in there and you think like, oh, what's happening here? Because, this part's supposed to be going slow.
My name is Marko, and I've been skiing for many marathons in Tartu Marathon many times, and also outside abroad. I have an idea on that. If you said if you're like average trainer, you go 7 hours per week, and if you're more professional, you go up to 20 hours per week. So you spend lots of time on it. So if you have invested lots of time in it, then you're ready to invest some money too, if it gets you somehow better or faster. So that's why you buy.
Or vice versa.
Yeah. So it's like vice versa.
Yeah.
That's one idea.
Yeah.
Why expensive things?
I don't know. I haven't seen a study of which way it goes, but my gut feeling says that it goes perhaps the other way around. That it often goes with the purchase of equipment, and then somehow I think the expectation, and also Daniel was saying you actually, if you have a more expensive equipment, you're kind of supposed to go faster than the guy with less expensive equipment.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It's like you're trying to buy some advantage.
But there is no stories like that there is some genius who is just like tuning his whatever cheap stuff, and then he goes like fast, and then everyone is like, wow. It's not like in the 80s. I think in the 80s probably people were doing that. Well, at least in Estonia, right? Well, in Estonia you couldn't you could only tune, but everyone had kind of the same equipment.
Somehow these stories don't. I more recently haven't noticed them.
So boring, huh? It's like an art, right? Like you go to this school, you
It's a professional thing.
But are you free to change or alter your gear, like in terms of enhancements? Is there no uniformity?
Oh no,
It's
it's
nice thing like, well, these kind of extra patterns on the side. You're not supposed to.
Your skis get marked at the start, so when you're gonna somebody will just glue something on them so that they would. I guess people would look if it looks like a big sort of hovercraft engine in the back, so maybe you can notice. But skiing, there's. But then altering, waxing is altering your equipment so that you can tune it as much as you like it.
Where would you? I guess it's a very similar, or in a way, yeah, as you mentioned in art, there is a lot of the same trend where something that used to be perhaps about sharing, working together, discussing work, and collaborating has been largely replaced. Of course, there are parallel worlds always going on, but in large part replaced by this very individualist career model. And it seems that the same processes have happened in every field of life. Do you think that focusing on amateur skiing, what do you think will this process intensify, or where will it go next, and where would you like it to go?
In amateur skiing, or at least at the moment, I don't see many forces contributing going the other way. It seems to be that I just see that there are more successful sports brands, and they seem to, their push seems to be one way. I don't see much of the push the other way, which kind of says, okay, let's not do Tartu Marathon, but let's just all together walk, with skis to the forest. I mean, there are some enthusiasts I know that will do it, but at least at the moment, I don't see it pushed the other way.
On the carnivalization, if I may call it so, that was mentioned here in the first comment. So in the background, that's a force pulling it the other way. That you should go and be back.
Well, no, actually,
get your grandfather's clothes and so forth.
I take it back. Perhaps for some reason in Estonia, it is a very popular format these days of sports. Mass participation sports has become what's called adventure racing, where which has certain positive characteristics which kind of discourage this individual performance. One is that it's team sport, so you have to have a team of 3 to 4 people. There are multi-disciplines, and also, even though there's a starting line, but because it's based on orienteering, so that everybody chooses their own tracks, and they often, separate. Teams go separate ways. There's no like, neck to neck. I mean, you're not kind of racing beside next team, and again, these are very popular. Often, because it happens in a forest, nobody can see, and you can't say midway, like how well one and the other team did it. There's a combination of, you need to solve some puzzles and exercises on the way, so that it's not only endurance or speed either. So this is perhaps a positive example. Again, I was talking earlier, this skeptical group of non-competitors. The women are much more numerous in the adventure racing, often making up half of the field, as opposed to 10% in that marathon. I don't know what it shows.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much, Tõnu.